Hello, YouTube. Believe it or not, it is not sufficient that the Super Congress is being convened. It is not sufficient that they are rolling out biometric scanners, iris scanners, and face scanners, and fingerprinting devices on U.S. streets. That's not sufficient in terms of hellish news for the day. I have another headline that I forgot to discuss, another news article that I forgot to discuss. It is from theatlanticwire.com, and it is from June 7th, 2011, so almost 2 months ago. But of course I had the fortune of reading it today on the same day that I read about the biometric scanners on U.S. streets. This is, again, from theatlanticwire.com. It is called Coming to an Airport Near You, Iris Scanners. So not only on the streets, folks, but the airports as well, similar to what they just did in Heathrow in the UK at their airports. Now I'm quoting, "Imagine a world where walking through airport security consists of basically just that, walking. New technology unveiled today at the annual meeting of International Air Transport Association, IATA, could cut the time it takes to clear security checks at airports from the current 35-minute average down to seconds and dramatically improve security. Please note how this fucking shamelessly pro-dehumanization newspaper, The Atlantic Wire, right off the bat, justifies tyranny, justifies dehumanization, justifies hell, justifies the fact that we're on the brink of Orwellian hell, by talking about how convenient the procedure that they're about to discuss will be. You know, that's all that matters to fucking zombies in America these days, is convenience. I mean, I try to discuss with people how they're molesting kids at the airport, and they say, well, the procedures only take a few seconds. I say, but they're molesting kids. And they say, well, you know, it's just a few seconds. I can put up with it for a few seconds. I just go through the body scanner like a fucking prisoner, and then I can board the airplane. Doesn't inconvenience me. I mean, the extent to which people value time over their very dignity in our society is fucking enraging. So, yeah, this article attempts to justify this procedure right off the bat based on the grounds that it will save people time. Save people time and decrease their humanity drastically. Save people time and insert them into a totalitarian control grid where they can be shot whenever the fuck the government feels like it. Okay, if you value your convenience over your soul, so be it. Continue quoting from this article. Kind of like the failed puffer bomb sniffer, the checkpoint of the future looks like an illuminated car wash with 3 portals. An iris scan matches you to a chip in your passport or an identification card and also assigns a security risk level that determines which of the 3 portals you'll enter. Known traveler, normal security, or enhanced security. Depending on your security level, a series of x-rays would then analyze your body and your luggage contents while you walk through a long tunnel. Travelers in the high-risk tunnel would be subject to a more aggressive, full-body scan that checks for explosives and liquids. It's a bit Orwellian. A bit Orwellian. But airport security officials nevertheless seem excited. Well, no shit. The fact that it's Orwellian is not going to prevent an airport security official from seeming excited. They get off on your dehumanization. They get off on enslaving you. Continuing to quote, U.S. Transportation Security Administration Chief John Pistole attended the unveiling and announced plans to implement the new fast-track system within the next 5 years. It's something that's long overdue, Pistole said at the conference. We're not at the checkpoint of the future yet, but we're working towards that. I think eventually we will see something similar. The TSA could use an upgrade as everybody clearly hates the invasive body scanners introduced last year. They hate them passionately. Oh, great, so they hate the body scanners, so now just have this pseudo-classist hierarchy as if we need more fucking hierarchy, as if we need more of a caste system in our society that's going to degrade certain segments of the populace. Just have a third, or just have a select group of high-risk passengers and go through these invasive body scanners. And, of course, who decides who the high-risk passengers are? Well, that's the government, folks. And, of course, they have phenomenal judgment. Of course, they are going to only subject the real criminals to these procedures, not people who are dissenters, not human rights activists. No, not people who oppose the systematic evisceration of our freedom. No, they're just going to address people who, subject people who really need it to these procedures. Yeah, right. So, quoting again, IATA Director General Giovanni brought human rights into the conversation. Passengers should be able to get from curb to boarding gate with dignity, Bisigiani told the Associated Press. That means without stopping, stripping, or unpacking, and certainly not groping. So, I suppose if fewer people are getting molested, that could have its gains. But of course, I'm suspicious of that could have its benefits. But of course, I'm rather suspicious of this merely by the fact that John Pistole, who implemented the molestation in the first place, is advocating this iris scanning. Of course, iris scanning is horrific, iris scanning is dehumanizing, etc., etc., but perhaps it's not as bad as getting molested if not everyone is getting molested and not everyone is going through these body scanners, which amount to a virtual strip search. But, you know, the fact that it's being implemented by John Pistole, who's clearly a pro-tyranny individual, makes me highly skeptical, to say the absolute least. Great, a pilot program using the new checkpoints of the future is expected to be introduced within a year. It is a private company will be conducting iris scans, and the so at least they include a clip of a Minority Report at the end of this article showing how iris scanning was ubiquitous in that dystopian movie. A movie that depicted a hellish Orwellian dystopian future that is now emerging, that we are now on the brink of seeing fully in its entirety realized. But yeah, I don't think for a second that they're going to stop molesting people en masse. And if they do, iris scanning barely, if at all, seems to be a better alternative. If it means that you're inserted into a database to ease the ability with which the government can track you in your entirety and silence dissent. Sorry, track you at all times and silence dissent, which is the direction we're headed in. I mean, I view molestation generally as worse, you know, depending on the severity, than mere CCTV surveillance, for instance, quote-unquote mere. It's still horrific, but I don't view it as bad as molestation. But when you have this surveillance to this level where they're scanning your iris and putting you into a database, along with the molestation for some passengers still. Now, keep in mind, not all passengers are subject to the molestation currently. It's a relatively decent percentage. They claim 3%. That's been contested. But it's a relatively decent percentage of passengers that are molested by the TSA when they fly, but it's still a significant minority. So say that they, independent of the fact that this develops this caste-esque tier system, this checkpoint of the future system, there's also the fact that what if, say, a third of passengers fall into this enhanced security category? Then that perhaps means that a third of passengers will be molested. Well, that's substantially more than the current number. And then alongside that, you have the iris scans in addition. So now you have an additional method of dehumanization while potentially keeping the molestation in place to an even greater extent. So it doesn't specify in this article you know, how many people are going to be subject to the enhanced security. It doesn't discuss the molestation much, mentions it very briefly. It just discusses the fact that the only those in enhanced security would be subject to the body scans, but it doesn't mention the molestation. So I don't know precisely how this would be implemented, but I think it's safe to assume, given the agenda of the elites and given the progressive dehumanization and enslavement that we're seeing taking place, this new security checkpoint of the future would be a negative thing, would worsen things as opposed to improve things. Now, if all you care about is time and the fact that it's convenient and now you can go through security much more quickly than you could before, then I suppose it could be a good thing. But if you actually care about your own dignity, if you actually care about your own humanness, if you actually care about your soul, if you actually care about society and care about it being a healthy environment for individuals, then you will see that this is likely going to amount to the continuation of the molestation, and perhaps the expansion and the increase in the number of people that are molested, as well as the introduction of this completely Orwellian iris scan system that previously no passengers were subjected to, but at the very least those that are selected for the enhanced security will now be subjected to as they begin rolling these out with a pilot program in a year. So, I mean, what do you do with this information, folks? What do you do when your fucking head is about to explode? What do you do with the fact that in one day I read about the fact that iris scanners are coming to airports, that they're going to set up this multi-tiered pseudo-classist hierarchy at airports where certain people, the good citizens, are exempt from the totalitarian dehumanizing procedures, whereas the terrorists, quote-unquote, which they could define as 50% of people, there are already, tens of thousands of people on the no-fly list, human rights activists, peace activists, etc. So you have the fact that they could designate 50% of the population to go through the enhanced screening because, they're the potential terrorists, whereas they elevate certain members of the populace above that, confer certain privileges onto them. You have this iris scanning and Orwellian iris scanning and checkpoint of the future tiered system coming to an airport near you, and then on the same day I read about the biometric face scanners being rolled out in the fucking streets. And people say, well, I only have to deal with the molestation at airports. Meanwhile, people in the know keep telling you, no, they're just starting at the airports. They're going to roll this out to all public buildings, and they're going to roll it out to the streets. They can't just dehumanize you at the airports. No, they're not content with that. No, they're not content with just molesting you at the airports. They're going to roll out these insane policies everywhere. It's going to be ubiquitous if we don't stop it. It's going to be everywhere if we don't stop it. And so I read about these two horrific things in the same day, and the news articles appear within the span of 2 months. The iris scanners June 7th at an airport, and then I believe the Al Jazeera article was today regarding the mobile biometric face scanners, iris scanners, and fingerprinting that 40 law enforcement agencies are going to have access to on the streets of the United States. So, I mean, how much horrific news can you get in one day? It's like every day it's an unending stream of this slide towards the absolute depths of slavery and hell. You call me a fearmonger, but you just look at the mainstream media, look at the continual degradation. Read 1984, read Brave New World. Look at how they have you with the pharmaceuticals docile. Look how the main ingredient in Prozac is fluoride, and how the Nazis used fluoride to render people docile. I mean, things are becoming so unfathomably horrific. In one day, I read about the iris scanners at the airports in the multi-tiered system and the iris scanners and fingerprinters and biometric face scanners on the streets. Read those books and compare what current society is like. 20 years ago, you would have thought this was absolute science fiction, impossible, dystopian scenario, only depicted in these novels, not even remotely close to becoming a reality, if it was even possible that they would ever become a reality. And now they're becoming a reality before your eyes, and 99.9% of people are still fucking asleep. They have their heads in the fucking sand. I mean, is there hope, folks? Is there hope? Is there hope for the preservation of the human spirit? Is there hope for the preservation of happiness and joy and compassion when these evil, control freak sadists who want to control every facet of our lives are destroying everything? Thanks for listening.